My girlfriend tried to force me to hand over my SSN for her safety, but when I refused, she turned everyone against me and destroyed my reputation. It was New Year's Eve, and the clock was ticking, not just toward midnight, but toward a decision I knew would change everything. Over the past few days, I'd been bombarded with comments from people weighing in on my situation. Some had a point. She might have valid concerns about her safety, even if her approach was wrong. Their words stayed with me. I needed to be absolutely sure I'd done everything I could before walking away from this relationship. So, I picked up the phone and called her. The words felt heavy, but I had to try. I told her, "I understand and respect your need to feel safe, but I can't compromise my safety to make you feel secure. I won't hand over my social security number to someone I don't trust, especially when it's illegal for them to use federal databases for personal reasons. But here's what I'm willing to do. I'll pay for a professional background check of your choice, as long as it's from a legitimate service." I paused, hoping this would be the olive branch to fix things, but her answer hit me like a gut punch. She refused. She insisted the only background check she trusted was the one her friend would do. I felt my chest tighten. "If that's how you feel," I said slowly, "then the issue isn't safety. It's trust." Her response was tears, frustration, and a plea for understanding. "Why can't you see it's not about you?" she cried. "It's about me and my safety as a woman in this world." I wanted to understand. I really did. But I couldn't ignore what her request implied, that she didn't trust me. I told her as much. "You made this about me when you asked for my SSN. I'm not paying for another man's sins. I'm not a criminal, and I won't let your past dictate our future. You don't trust me, and without trust, what's the point of this relationship?" Her tone shifted, accusing me of not caring about her safety. She said I was dismissing her vulnerability as a woman, and that if I truly cared, I'd just comply. I tried to explain again, this time with my voice shaking and my heart racing. "I tried to compromise," I said, my anxiety making it hard to keep steady. "But if this is how you react when you don't get your way, what happens the next time we disagree? Will it always be tears and ultimatums?" She didn't stop. "You don't understand what it's like to live as a woman, always afraid," she said, tears streaming. "You should just respect what I need to feel safe." I felt my frustration boiling over. "I tried to meet you halfway. You refused. I've done all I can." I was pacing by this point, my hands clammy, my heart pounding in my chest. The conversation wasn't just emotionally charged, it was physically exhausting. Then came the final straw. She asked through sobs, "What about New Year's? We were supposed to spend it with my parents." Her words stung, but I couldn't let them sway me. "You should have thought about that before trying to strong-arm me into giving you my SSN, I said, my voice firm for the first time that night. I hung up. Just like that, it was over. I sat down afterward, my mind racing and my heart heavy. I was hurt, yes, but also relieved. This shouldn't have gotten so messy. Relationships aren't supposed to feel like battles, and while I hated ringing in the new year alone, I realized I'd dodged a bullet. Did she really think I was some kind of criminal? Or, as some had suggested, was this part of a larger scam? I may never know. But one thing is clear. Trust is the foundation of any relationship. Without it, everything falls apart. And sometimes, walking away is the bravest thing you can do, even if it hurts like hell. Update 1. Things escalated after the breakup. I didn't expect everything to blow up the way it did, but here we are. Let me start by saying that I thought the breakup was going to be the end of the story. I figured, okay, we've hit an impasse, it's over, time to move on. What I didn't anticipate was how messy things would get afterward. The first thing that caught me off guard was her reaction. She texted me later that night, long paragraphs about how she wasn't trying to control me, and that this was just about her safety and needing reassurance. She said she thought I'd at least try to understand where she was coming from instead of giving up on her. I didn't reply right away because, honestly, I was exhausted. That conversation had already drained me emotionally, and I needed time to process what had happened. But the guilt started creeping in, so I decided to respond the next morning. I kept it short, basically saying, "I did my best to compromise, but you refused to meet me halfway. I hope you can find what you're looking for, but I don't think this can work." Her reply came almost immediately. She said something like, "You're proving my point by walking away. This is exactly why women have to be cautious, because men don't stick around when things get hard." That one stung. I didn't know how to respond because it felt like she was twisting the narrative, making me out to be the bad guy for having boundaries. I left her on read because I knew anything I said would just add fuel to the fire. Then the mutual friends got involved. A couple of them reached out to check on me, saying they'd heard about the breakup. I appreciated their concern, but the way they framed things made it clear they'd only heard her side of the story. One of them told me she was devastated and that I should have been more understanding of her trauma. Another friend straight up called me selfish for not doing what she needed to feel safe. It was frustrating because I had tried to compromise, but they didn't seem to care about that. It felt like they were painting me as some heartless guy who didn't care about her struggles, which couldn't be further from the truth. What really threw me was when one of her friends messaged me saying, "She's not the only one who's hurt by this, you know. You broke her trust, and now she feels like she can't rely on anyone." I don't even know how to respond to something like that. It's not my fault she has trust issues, and I don't think it's fair to put that on me. At the same time, I couldn't help but feel like maybe I should have tried harder to reassure her. But where do you draw the line between supporting someone and compromising your own boundaries? Things took an even weirder turn when her trusted friend, the guy who was supposed to run the background check, reached out to me. I don't know if she asked him to or if he did it on his own, but either way, it felt invasive. He sent me a message saying, "I don't think you understand how important this was to her. She's been through a lot, and this was her way of protecting herself. You should have respected that." That message pissed me off more than anything else because, first of all, I don't even know this guy. Second, he had no right to lecture me about my relationship. I didn't respond, but the whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth. I did a little digging after that because something about the situation wasn't sitting right with me. Turns out, this trusted friend is also a private investigator, which explains why she wanted him to do the background check. But here's the kicker. He's apparently friends with her ex, the one she claimed was such a horrible person. That raised some red flags for me because why would she trust someone who's close to the guy she said caused so much trauma? It made me question everything she'd told me, and honestly, it made me glad I stuck to my boundaries. Despite all of this, I can't shake the feeling that I could have handled things differently. Maybe if I'd explained my perspective better or approached the situation with more empathy, things wouldn't have gotten so messy. But then I remind myself that I did try to compromise. I offered to pay for a professional background check, and she refused. What else was I supposed to do? The aftermath has been a roller coaster of emotions. Some days I feel relieved, like I dodged a bullet by ending things before they got worse. Other days, I feel sad and nostalgic, thinking about the good moments we shared. It's hard not to wonder what could have been if things had played out differently. But at the end of the day, I know I made the right decision for myself. A relationship without trust isn't a relationship worth fighting for. I haven't heard from her directly since the text messages, but I've heard through the grapevine that she's been venting to anyone who will listen. Apparently, she's telling people I didn't care about her safety and that I abandoned her when she needed me the most. It's frustrating to know that my side of the story isn't being represented, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to defend myself. The people who really know me understand that I'm not the villain she's making me out to be. As for the new year, it wasn't exactly the celebration I'd envisioned. I spent it alone, reflecting on everything that had happened and trying to make sense of it all. It wasn't fun, but it felt necessary. I needed that time to process my emotions and figure out what I want moving forward. Looking back, I think the breakup was inevitable. Her trust issues and my unwillingness to compromise on my boundaries were always going to clash. It's a tough pill to swallow, but sometimes love just isn't enough. You need mutual respect and understanding, and unfortunately, we didn't have that. Moving forward, I'm going to be more mindful of red flags early on. I don't want to find myself in another situation where I'm forced to choose between my boundaries and someone else's comfort. It's a hard lesson to learn, but I think it's an important one. At the end of the day, I can't control how she feels or what she says about me. All I can do is focus on my own growth and try to learn from this experience. It's not the way I wanted to start the new year, but maybe it's exactly what I needed to move forward. Update 2. I thought things would start to settle down after the breakup, but nope. It's like every time I think I've closed the door, someone's prying it back open. This time, it wasn't just her or her friend trying to get involved. Her mom decided to step into the ring. Yeah, you read that right. Her mom. Out of nowhere, I got a message from her mom on Facebook. I wasn't even friends with her on there, so it went to my message requests. It was long, like essay long, and started with something like, "I hope you'll hear me out because I think there's been a misunderstanding." She said her daughter was deeply hurt, that she's been crying nonstop, and that she was only asking for what she thought was necessary to feel safe. Then she dropped this line. "As a man, you might not understand what it's like for a woman to feel so vulnerable in today's world." I couldn't even finish reading it at first because it just felt like more of the same. Like, yes, I get it. Women deal with things I'll never fully understand. But how many times do I need to explain that I wasn't being unreasonable? I offered a solution. She turned it down. End of story. The part that really got me, though, was when her mom wrote, "I know you care about her, and if you're the good man she says you are, I think you'll reconsider." That hit me harder than I expected. Not because I was considering going back, but because it made me realize how much of my character was being tied to this one decision. Was I a good man if I held my ground? Or did standing up for myself make me selfish? After staring at the message for way too long, I finally replied. I kept it short and polite, basically saying, "I appreciate your concern, but I don't think it's appropriate to discuss this further. Your daughter and I had fundamental differences that we couldn't work through, and I think it's best we leave it at that." I thought that would be the end of it. Spoiler, it wasn't. The next day, her mom messaged me again. This time, she went in a completely different direction, saying I was being cold and that it was clear I never really cared about her daughter if I could walk away so easily. That made my blood boil. I wanted to fire back and say, "Do you have any idea how hard this was for me? Do you know how much anxiety I had just standing up for myself?" But I didn't. I blocked her instead. After that, I started hearing from more mutual friends. Apparently, she's been telling people that I refused to help her feel safe, that I dismissed her trauma, and that I walked away without even trying to understand her. The narrative she's spinning is wild, and the worst part is that some people are eating it up. One friend sent me screenshots of a group chat where she was venting. In one message, she said, "He made me feel like I was the crazy one for asking for something so basic. I was trying to protect myself, and he acted like I was attacking him." In another, she wrote, "I don't know how I'm ever supposed to trust anyone again. Every guy I meet just proves they don't care about what women go through." Look, I get that she's hurt, and I get that she probably feels betrayed. But the way she's framing this makes it sound like I'm some kind of monster when all I did was enforce a boundary. It's frustrating because I can't control how people perceive me. All I can do is remind myself that I acted in good faith and tried to find a compromise. Here's where things took a turn, though. One of her mutual friends messaged me to apologize. She said she'd believed her at first, but started to see cracks in the story as more details came out. Apparently, my ex told people I refused any kind of background check, which isn't true. When this friend found out I'd actually offered to pay for one through a legitimate service, she started questioning everything. She admitted she felt manipulated, which honestly validated a lot of my own feelings. But it doesn't stop there. This same friend told me something that completely changed how I see the situation. She said my ex had done something similar in her last relationship. She didn't ask for a background check, but she did give her ex an ultimatum about something he wasn't comfortable with. When he didn't cave, she painted him as the bad guy to their friends and eventually drove him out of their social circle. Hearing that made everything click. This wasn't just about safety or trauma. This was about control. It wasn't enough for her to feel safe. She needed me to prove my loyalty by doing exactly what she wanted, no matter how unreasonable it was. And when I didn't, she flipped the script to make herself the victim. Since then, I've been trying to distance myself from the drama. I've stopped responding to mutual friends who want to talk things out, and I've muted her on every social platform. But even with all that, it's hard not to feel the ripple effects. People I thought were neutral have started treating me differently, like they're not sure whether to believe me or her. It sucks, because I hate feeling like I have to defend myself when I know I didn't do anything wrong. The hardest part has been the self-doubt. There are moments when I catch myself wondering if I really was the problem. Could I have handled things better? Should I have pushed through my anxiety and done more to reassure her? Was I too rigid in my stance? But every time I go down that rabbit hole, I come back to the same conclusion. I offered a fair compromise. She rejected it. That's not on me. On the flip side, I've also started to see this as a wake-up call. This whole ordeal has made me realize how important it is to set boundaries early in a relationship. I ignored a lot of red flags because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, but in the end, that just made things worse. Moving forward, I'm going to be more upfront about my boundaries and less willing to bend over backward to avoid conflict. As for my ex, I don't wish her any ill will. I hope she finds whatever it is she's looking for, whether that's safety, trust, or peace of mind. But I also hope she takes a long, hard look at how her actions affect the people around her, because if this pattern keeps repeating, she's going to push away a lot more people than just me. For now, I'm focusing on myself and trying to rebuild. It's been a rough start to the year, but I'm choosing to see it as an opportunity to grow. If nothing else, this experience has taught me a lot about who I am and what I'm willing to stand for, and honestly, that feels like a win in its own way.